I don't know if it's just me, but being an introvert in today's workplace feels harder than it did 10 years ago. The strange thing is that we're constantly told workplaces are becoming more supportive, more inclusive, and more understanding of different personalities. Yet from where I'm sitting, I feel like the exact opposite. Every swing at work seems to bring another change, another meeting, another process, another structure, another initiative designed to improve communication. And somehow, despite all these efforts to improve communication, people seem to be talking less than ever. Or maybe more accurately, they're talking less honestly. Recently, where I work, two separate teams are brought together into one larger group. Now, the goal was simple: create consistency, improve communication, streamline operations. On paper, it probably looks fantastic. In reality, it's created something completely different. Now, instead of smaller meetings where people felt comfortable speaking, we suddenly found ourselves sitting in rooms of 20 people. The atmosphere changed overnight because people became cautious, careful, reserved. And for an introvert, it became exhausting. So today I want to talk about what it's like being an introvert in modern workplaces, and why I think many businesses misunderstand introverts completely, and why so many people seem more disconnected from work than ever before. One thing I've noticed over the years is that companies often assume bigger collaboration automatically means better collaboration. But does it? In our old setup, smaller groups meant conversations felt personal. You knew the people around you. You understood their personalities. You felt comfortable speaking. Not because you were fearless, but because the environment felt safe. Now put 20 people in the same room, add supervisors, add management, add performance expectations, add uncertainty around company changes, and then suddenly nobody wants to be the person who says the wrong thing. Nobody wants to be the person who asks that awkward question. Nobody wants to challenge an idea. And then the result? Silence. Yet management often interprets that silence completely wrong. They see a quiet room and think, people need encouragement. We need more engagement. We need people to speak up. What they fail to recognise is that sometimes silence isn't caused by a lack of confidence. It's caused by a lack of comfort. Those are two very different things. If you're naturally introverted, you'll probably understand this instantly. Walking into a large meeting isn't just attending a meeting, it's a performance. The moment you sit down, you're aware of everything. Where you're sitting, who's watching, who's speaking, whether you'll be called upon, whether you will be expected to contribute, whether your answer will sound intelligent, whether you'll stumble over your words, whether you'll become the centre of attention. It is mentally exhausting. And people often misunderstand introversion. They think introverts are shy or socially awkward or lacking confidence. But many introverts are none of those things. Look, we can talk, we can lead, we can communicate, we can present. The difference is energy. Large social environments drain us, and the modern workplace seems determined to create more of them. More group discussions, more workshops, more brainstorming sessions, more public participation, more standing in front of crowds. It's a thought businesses are unintentionally rewarding extroverted behaviour while wondering why quieter employees seem withdrawn. One thing introverts become very good at is wearing masks. I've covered this before in a few of my videos. Most people at work probably won't describe me as particularly introverted because I've learned how to function. I've learned how to smile. I've learned how to engage, how to contribute, how to appear comfortable. But appearing comfortable and feeling comfortable are completely different things. That's something many people never see. You can spend an entire day acting socially confident while feeling mentally exhausted underneath. It's like you're running a second job nobody knows exists, constantly monitoring yourself, constantly adjusting, constantly adapting. By the end of the day, you're drained, not because the work was hard, but because the environment was. And I suspect many people watching this know exactly what I mean. There's a phrase I've heard countless times. A supervisor asks a question, nobody responds. A few seconds of awkward silence, then comes the joke. Tough crowd today, everyone laughs. But what if that's not what's happening? What if the room isn't difficult? What if the room simply doesn't feel safe enough to be honest? People don't stay silent because they enjoy awkwardness. People stay silent because they're calculating risk. Will my comment create a problem? Will my opinion be remembered later? Will I look foolish? Will I become the focus of attention? The larger the audience becomes, the greater those risks feel, especially during times of uncertainty. And let's be honest, many workplaces today are full of uncertainty. Restructures, cost-cutting, policy changes, automation, efficiency drives. And people know this. Even when management doesn't say it directly, the atmosphere changes. People become careful, and careful people rarely speak freely. Look, this is a bigger question. Our workplace is becoming too controlled. Not necessarily intentionally, but gradually. Everything is measured. Everything is monitored. Everything is tracked. Everything has a process. Everything has a procedure. Everything has a KPI. Everything has a meeting. And at some point you start wondering, where does the human side fit into all of this? Where does personality fit? Where does individuality fit? Where does simple enjoyment fit? Many jobs today feel less like communities and more like systems. Efficient systems perhaps, but systems nonetheless. And maybe that's why so many people seem disconnected. Maybe that's why engagement surveys never quite match reality. Maybe that's why so many workers feel exhausted despite earning decent money. Because humans were never designed to spend every day navigating highly controlled environments, especially introverts. Look, I don't have a magic wand. I don't have magic answers. I wish I did. But there are a few things that help me. Sometimes it's choosing where I sit in the room. Not directly under the spotlight, not front and centre, just somewhere that makes me feel comfortable. Sometimes it's reminding myself that I don't have to speak simply for the sake of speaking. Sometimes it's preparing thoughts beforehand. Sometimes it's accepting that discomfort doesn't mean failure. Most importantly, I've learned not to compare myself to extroverts. We're completely different, not better, not worse, but different. And that's okay. The problem begins when workplaces expect everyone to operate in exactly the same way, because they don't, and they never will. Look, maybe this is simply the future of work. Bigger teams, more meetings, more collaboration, more structure, more visibility. Maybe this is where workplaces are heading. But if that's true, I think businesses need to start understanding introverts a little better. Because silence doesn't always mean disengagement. Quiet doesn't always mean lack of ideas. And reserved doesn't always mean uninterested. Some of the most thoughtful people in any workplace are often the ones saying the least. Not because they have nothing to contribute, but because the environment isn't allowing their best contribution to emerge. I don't know if enjoyable jobs are becoming rarer. Sometimes it feels that way. What I do know is that being an introvert in today's workplace it feels harder than it used to. And if you've been feeling that too, then maybe it's not just you. Perhaps there's a lot more of us sitting quietly in those meetings than anyone realises.